Type 7, the Epicure. The focus of attention for a 7 is on planning, pleasure, and possibility, and the grand avoidance is the avoidance of pain and the avoidance of limits. 7s will often talk about a remembrance of some sort of deprivation, somebody telling them no, somebody limiting them a lot, putting a lot of strictures on, this kind of unbridled enthusiasm of a child. And there's a lot of strictures and a tightening around that in some way. And so if you're feeling limited, then what are you going to do? You're going to escape to the imagination where there are no limits. And so you're going to try to translate that into the world and into relationship. So relationship a lot of times can almost exist in the 7's mind of what we could be and all of these things we could do. And a lot of times it lives in the world of not only, there's a lot of times a misnomer for 7s that it's all about being happy and keeping things fun and light. That's not always my experience of 7s, although it is one. There's also what I find the greater focus is on stimulation, on almost a hyper-stimulation of ideas, of meaty, interesting topics, the world of possibilities, the shared dream and the shared vision. And aren't you, person with whom I'm in relationship, ever so interested in this? But the sticking point is the vision needs work. It needs attention to detail, and it needs you need somebody to be able to stick with something. And the 7 doesn't want to do that, so they'd prefer somebody else. So a lot of times, one 7 was telling me that she had this grand vision of a garden, and asked her husband to help her with the garden. Her husband digs the garden. She has the garden for a year. She's dragging the hose out to the backyard and decides, wouldn't it be really cool if the garden were close by? Because it's so far out there, it's ridiculous to drag this hose all the way out there. And her husband's looking at her saying, hello, I about broke my back digging the first garden. You want me to move the second garden? Or you want me to move and build a new garden? And this is the kind of thing for the 7 is the idea. It's an idea and it's a perceived imagination, and the actual doing function is buried, the actual making it happen and bringing it to fruition, which is a challenge for all mental types, the doing function. So in relationship, you're going to notice with 7s, the anxiety starts to cook if you don't share the dream and you don't back their enthusiasm. It also shows when it's time to buckle down and attend to the hard parts of whatever they've been dreaming up. So one 7 describes how he gets really rigid and judgmental when he gets close to the deadline, and he gets hyper or manic and insists on some version of perfection, whether it be a perfect report, a perfectly clean kitchen, or the perfect piece of writing. Can't you people get this right? And it's because they've got so many balls juggling in the air as they start to drop or bringing it to fruition. It can cause a lot of stress. So the family and staff will begin to scatter as they notice this, once cheery 7, this once optimistic 7 becomes kind of rigid, judgmental, aggressive, and controlling. The way the anger often shows up with a 7 in relationship is when they get teachy-preachy. So it'll be, no, I'm not angry, I just need to tell you the way things are, and if you were really as enlightened, as I am, then you would be able to understand this. So for people in relationships, it's really, really important to know that this is a mask for pain. This is an avoidance. And if you can really start to share how you experience this, what it's like for you, the 7 is a self-referencing type, so there's going to be pushback from that. But what I have found really helpful for 7s is to be able to help them and support them in slowing down, in being able to have some space to see the impact and almost interrupting the grand vision, and not with rigidness and not with judgmentalness, because that will shut down a 7 so fast it'll make your head spin. But with some sense that, yes, I love this dream, and here's the work, or here's what it's going to take, and perhaps we can do it together, and I can show up and help you get there. So if you're in relationship with a 7, this is really important to understand this is a mask for anxiety. So wishing you well. Feel free to add your comments on the YouTube page of what, if you are a 7, of just kind of what works for you in relationship as relates to feedback. Or if you're in relationship with a 7, what are some of the challenges? And again, being kind, compassionate, and understanding that we're all just trying to get through this together.